Thursday, March 28th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we review the first volume of Keiko Takemiya's Terra.
Let's do this.
So a while ago, we decided to have a couple of contests here at Geeknights since we had a bunch of various free stuff to lay around and we thought it'd be fun. And one of those contests, which is over, is relevant to tonight. And I must say, you guys really disappointed in terms of telling us about the worst anime ever.
I don't know. Are people just not paying attention? Do people want contests? Do you not want contests?
Well, we got a lot of entries, but I'll be honest, the entries were all pretty crap or didn't really follow the rules so much or didn't actually do what we asked.
Yeah, and while there were, some entries, there weren't a lot compared to how many people I know are out there listening to this.
Also compared to the Thursday night contest, which got more quality entries than I know how to deal with.
Yeah, so what the hell, guys? Maybe we just won't give out a prize because everyone lost.
I just don't think anyone's actually seen that much bad anime, or if they have, they don't obviously have the ability to write effectively about it.
Yeah, when we say, hey, we want you to write something, and you just say, yeah, this anime was pretty bad. No.
I suppose I didn't want to have to say that I guess grammar counts. Some of them are just not readable.
And some of them, it's like, you didn't even write a paragraph. Most of these things are less than 2 sentences.
Now compare this...
If I was going to enter this contest, I would have written a multi-paragraph essay.
Now compare this
I expected
to Thursday night, where not only we get a ton of entries for the worst podcast in the world contest, but a few of the entries pushed the 1 or 2 page mark. They wrote diatribes about how bad these things were with examples.
Yeah, that's what you got to do, people. You're not going to get free stuff without doing some work here.
Yeah, so we're going to go through them, but if no one gave us a good entry, we're not going to give you the MD Geist soundtrack.
No.
We'll mail you something maybe, but it's not going to be MD Geist.
No,
it's too good for you.
Wow, it's pretty bad. Maybe there'll be, I don't know, I didn't actually look at all the entries with a lot of time and care, so maybe there is one in there that's good enough and we can give them the MD Geist.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I gotta go look.
So in the news, you can't have 10 years of Pokemon.
Actually, you have a lot more than 10 years of Pokemon.
Well, in April, the TV show Pokemon that indoctrinated millions of young children around the world into the wonderful, fantastic world of marketing is going to be 10 years old.
Now think about that. The Pokemon TV show is 10 years old. You know what? The Game Boy game is older, and the manga is older. So Pokemon is real old.
Thing is, though, they're not that much older. It surprises me in one that, wow, Pokemon came out a long time ago. I feel old. But then at the same time, wow, Pokemon wasn't around nearly as long as I feel like it was.
Well, see, the thing is, Pokemon came out in the mid to late 90s, and it's the mid to late 2000s. So all that stuff that came out around then is becoming a decade old, and it's kind of scary.
But when I first got to RIT, I remember, you think back when I was a freshman in college to when Pokemon was around or whatever, and I couldn't imagine a time in my life where there was no Pokemon. I couldn't fathom the idea that there was once a time when I'd never heard of Pikachu.
I can, because there was such a time.
Well,
but
when I was
no one who is born from here on out in Western society will be able to do so.
Let alone Eastern society.
Yeah.
Maybe North Korea. They might not know about Pokemon.
I mean, I just saw a picture yesterday of an airplane with Pokemon, paint job on it, or a giant Pokemon decal. I couldn't tell which.
Well, just the other
day...
day...
if you ride on the plane, you get Pokemon stuff.
Just the other day, we were playing Smash Brothers, since it's the best game on the Wii right now. And I used Pikachu 3 times.
Yeah, because you like to use Pikachu, because
he's super cheap.
He uses that lightning that comes down from the sky, so no one can attack you from above. They can only attack you from the side.
Against mediocre players, Pikachu is cheap and amazing. Against anyone who knows what they're doing, Pikachu's kind of useless.
Yeah, just the thing is, if someone else is Pikachu, you can't come at them from above because he'll drop the lightning on you.
Yeah, if I'm playing against people who actually know what they're doing, I almost always use Falco.
Yeah. We're not that good at that game anyway.
I'm better than you.
No, you're not. Most people who know what they're doing at that game kick both our asses, though. Real hard. We don't even have a chance to do damage.
Yeah, luckily, whenever the new one comes out, I imagine I'm going to sit down and put actual effort into being the best there ever was, or at least in the top 1,000,000.
Yep, and since I'm hoping that it uses more Wii-type controls and less old-school fighting-type controls, I'll actually have a chance because my old-school fighting-type control skills are not so high. So if it's all about Wii controls, I can definitely get ahead and maybe be the best there is at Smash Brothers Brawl.
So there's really nothing else I can say about Pokemon being 10 years old. I could make a you can't something 10 Pokemon joke, but I already did, and it's kind of lost its pizzazz.
Yeah, this Pokemon came out when I was like in high school, and high school 10 years ago. Goddamn.
Don't think about it, because
Okay.
then you're going to remember. I mean, remember that stupid sci-fi thing I was watching, Wild Palms? I saw that when I was like 11.
So you know Makoto Shinkai, the guy who did Place Promised and Voices of a Distant Star and some other stuff that we never saw, but now I realize it exists and I kind of want to see it.
Of things he has done that I have seen, he's batting 1,000.
Yeah, he's made basically two things that I've seen. They've both been basically the same, only different.
Yep. We both disagree a little bit as to which one is better, but I would agree that they're both very good. I really liked Place Promised, and I really liked Hoshi no Koi.
Well, his new thing is called Byosoku 5 centimeter.
5 centimeter.
It's called 5 centimeters per second. People aren't quite sure, but it might be called 5 centimeters per second okasho.
All right, now, considering that I've seen 2 different works by this guy, I'm going to hazard a guess that this somehow involves a boy and a girl who like each other in some way and then are separated and are either trying to come back together or cannot come back together.
Yeah, basically that's what it is. It's a 3-part movie. I guess, I don't know if you'd call it an OAV, but it's like 3 separate 30-minute things that go together. And you can get part 1 on the BitTorrents right now with the fan subs.
Uh-huh. It seems like this guy might be a one-trick pony, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean,
It's not. It's sort of like the guy who did
Does Snatch?
Yeah, he's Madonna's husband, I think, Guy Ritchie. You know, he only has one trick, but his trick is real good, and I don't mind him doing that trick again.
he dodges bullets, Avi.
It's who else is a one-trick pony that does real good at that one trick? Nintendo? Nintendo's real
Yeah.
good. Make a Mario game. Make another Mario game.
See, I can't say Satoshi Kon because Wall, you see something that he did and you think, wow, Satoshi Kon did that.
No.
They're all still really unique and amazing and different.
Yep, it is sometimes hard to tell between someone who has a distinctive style or artistic, theme versus someone who is doing the same thing every time. You know, like Tezuka. If you see a Tezuka work, you know immediately it's a Tezuka. It's like you know a Van Gogh painting when you see it. But Van Gogh is not a one-trick pony, and neither is Tezuka.
Well, the problem with that, as we'll get into in the rest of the show, to most people who read manga, if you look at any manga from the 70s, you'll think, wow, that's a Tezuka.
Possibly. Maybe so. But, yeah. I guess you'd have to know who Tezuka was, though. Some people don't even know.
Well, if you knew, if you showed him Phoenix and all those things, and said, look at this, look at this, look at this, and then you handed him something else from the 70s and said, look at this, they'd say, by the same guy, right? Things of the day. Now, there's a show in Japan called Challenger on Fire. I don't know very much about it.
Does
but
it involve setting people on fire?
It might, Rabbit. It might.
Damn, that's awesome. I want to see this.
See, the way this particular episode works, my thing of the day, that is that they've got 100 people in Japan, many of whom are cosplaying. And the goal is, they've asked all of them to name 100 anime characters. So they all sit there with a little whiteboard and a shield between all the people around them on this big thing. And they'll show an anime character like Cutie Honey or Tuxedo Kamen or Asuka. And then everyone will have to write down the character's name. And if you
Oh, okay. I thought it was name 100. I could name 100 anime characters. If it's just naming them, I could come up with 100.
Yeah, I guess it's recognize and know how to spell the name of 100 anime characters.
Oh, see, now, that would be okay in English, but it's actually harder in Japanese because a lot of the characters have like a complicated kanji in their name. And while you might go, oh, that's so-and-so, if you don't know the kanji, you're SOL.
See, I'm not sure the rules of how exact they had to be, and you could always just write things out in kana, so it wouldn't have been that big a deal.
Yeah, I could always tell if someone got it right because they would. I couldn't understand what they were saying 100%. You would see when they showed the answer, there'd be some symbols under the picture of the character, and then you look at what the people wrote on their whiteboard. If the symbols match, they got it right.
I was very happy I've learned enough hiragana that I actually recognized a few characters' written names.
Holy crap.
Yeah, if I could only learn katakana and more than one kanji, and then maybe any amount of Japanese grammar. But anyway, I digress. Now, it starts out okay, and very quickly the number of contestants dwindles, because if you get one wrong, you're out, done forever.
What, single elimination?
Single elimination.
That's tough, especially if they throw out like an obscure character right away. But what if everyone gets it wrong? Does everyone out?
I'm not sure how they did it. See, the thing's entirely in Japanese, and while I picked out a few phrases, like at one point he says, the anime-loving fan in green has lost, or something to that effect, that I have no idea what was actually going on. But it's easy to see. You can watch and figure it out, and they always say the name of the character, even though they don't write it in English. So you can play along with the game and see if you knew them. I'll admit that after the first few, I didn't know any of them for a while.
I barely knew any of them. Like, I knew Asuka.
And I knew Kenshiro.
I knew some other ones.
Yeah.
But a lot of these are just obscure. Like, I knew that one of the guys was from, like, the Super Plastic Wrestling, whatever it is. But I didn't know the character's name.
Well, the funny thing was, some of them that were... I had no idea, never seen him before. But you see all the contestants like, oh, duh, and they write it down like nothing.
Yeah, it's like, that must be some old show that we've never seen.
That must be like a Goofy or a Donald Duck of Japan.
You know, this would be a fun thing to do at a convention sometime.
Actually, I've already added that to our con repertoire.
Yeah, we just need to get 100 pictures of anime characters on a laptop, and then
that's
you make,
really
like,
easy.
You make like a PowerPoint, and you just push space to reveal the name, and you push space to go to the next picture.
I've already sketched out exactly how we'll do it. I'm gonna append to our Otakon, I guess, resume, and we'll see if we do this at any cons with or instead of the anime match game.
Let's prepare it and do it in the future. Maybe we could do it at Katsucon or something.
We could do it at some of the small cons this year.
Yeah, definitely like a test out.
But anyway, the other cool thing is that they've got some guests, like special guests competing, one of whom is Akira Kamiya, who I've met at Animazement, and he is a super awesome voice actor who has been in pretty much everything.
Yep, he's a big-time guy, voice acted a whole shit ton of characters.
He's right up there with my man, Takahashi Ryosuke.
You forget his real name, don't you?
I do forget his real name.
Me too. But yeah, he's as good as that guy.
Yeah, he's also super awesome and super funny. The field of competition narrows very quickly to these two dudes.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because the field of competition has some super nerdy people in it and some cosplayers, and it's kind of scary. But the two dudes left at the end seem kind of like normal, geeky, cool dudes.
And eventually the guy gets to like 75. If it comes down to one man, he makes it to like 75 or so.
Yeah, because even though he's the winner, he's beating everyone else is out. Remember, it's 100 anime characters. He has to make it to 100.
Now, in the end, you can't name 100 anime characters. In the end, the saddest thing is the character that comes up is Zenigata from Lupin.
And now everyone knows Zenigata. He knows Zenigata, obviously. I mean, it's obvious. It's freaking Zenigata.
It looked like he didn't know Zenigata's full name, or he had trouble figuring out what kanji to write, and he putzed around a little, he failed, and they knocked him out of the competition.
I think he couldn't write the name correctly.
I need someone who understands Japanese to watch this and tell me what he actually wrote so I can figure out why he lost.
If he didn't know Zenigata, then this completely changes everything.
How could you know all those characters and not know Zenigata?
I don't know. If an American knows Zenigata and you don't, that's for shame. All right. My thing of the day is a new blog. The blog has only been going since last month, but it keeps getting updated every day, even today. The blog is miotd.com. The tagline is "We dig giant robots." MIOTD stands for Mecha Image of the Day. My thing of the day is the image of the day. It's pretty awesome.
I could see a few of our friends really digging that.
Yeah, there's a guy. It says on the bottom of the blog, copyright Patrick McFarland, images copyright at original artists. So there's a guy, Patrick McFarland, who I must assume is making this blog, and every day he finds an awesome mecha image and posts it. And I think he's going to continue doing so. He started last month, and he shows no signs of slowing down. And today's image is an awesome high-resolution CG rendering of my favorite mecha, the VF-1S from Macross, and it is quite awesome. So if you like mechas, perhaps robots or planes or other mechanical bits from anime, you should subscribe to the RSS feed of Mecha Image of the Day.
So these aren't mechas that are also girls?
Not that I've seen yet.
Okay, I
have yet to peruse the entire archive, but let me give you an example of some of the things you will find in there. You will find things from Macross, Gundam, Ghost in the Shell, Golf Force, Ava, Eureka 7, Die Buster, Super Robot Wars, Star Wars. Let's see what Star Wars image he's got in there.
What could he have? What mecha was in Star Wars?
It's an Imperial Star Destroyer size chart.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, well, seems like a cool site.
Yeah. Pretty cool if you like mecha. MIOTD.com.
Anyway, segue! Tonight, we're going to review something that we got a while ago. We wanted to review right away, but we actually, for the last couple weeks, due to some sort of insanity, have a schedule. We have an internal calendar, and we actually planned out the show months in advance.
Yeah, so
So as a result, we ended up doing other things first, and while we wanted to do this, we've just gotten to it now.
and we've basically, every month, we'll sit down and we'll come up with show ideas for the next weeks and weeks and weeks. And that way, we won't come home every day going, what do we do the show on? I don't know.
Granted, we've planned out months worth of Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, and we've got like one Thursday ready to go.
Yeah, we'll work on that. We'll work on that this weekend.
Yeah. Anyway, tonight we're going to review something that has come out very recently. So recently, in fact, that if you Google around, you're not going to find too much about it.
Unless you know how to type it in Japanese, where I'm sure you could find a whole bunch of stuff.
In Japanese.
Probably, yes.
But Keiko Takemiya's To Terra, or Terra A.
Or Towards the Terra, or however you want to translate it.
It's a manga that was written in the early 70s by, obviously, Keiko Takemiya. And before we get any further, I'd just like to say that I really like it. But maybe it's because I've been on a kick for this old 70s kind of manga lately.
I don't know. I think it's just, this is the kind of thing that if my likes were a bowling alley, this sort of thing's a strike right down the middle.
Oh, so you're into the Shonen Ai space drama.
No, not really, but it's not really Shonen Ai. I mean,
Well, not yet. Not yet.
As far as I can tell. See, this is published in the United States by Vertical Inc. And Vertical Inc. are the people who published, Ode to Kirihito and all that other good stuff like
Now,
that.
it's Vertical
Buddha.
Vertical Inc. as in Vertical Incorporated, not as in Vertical Inc.
Oh, yes, that's right. Vertical Incorporated. And they published this. And when they were marketing it, right, they were like, check out the new sci-fi epic from the master of shoujo, Keiko Takemiya.
Well,
shoujo in space. It's Star Trek shoujo. Check it out.
They're really pushing it as though it's shoujo, and I've also seen a lot of people call it an emo manga.
Yeah, that was on the bookmark that I took from the Vertical Inc. booth at the New York Comic Con.
Oh, yeah, it is on this bookmark.
It said, what does it say? Read it.
The bookmark says, in space, no one can hear you cry. To Terra, the hit sci-fi emo manga by shoujo master Keiko Takemiya.
Now, I don't know if they're just lying with this marketing or pretending that it's a shoujo in order to get sales because shoujo is popular in the US, or I don't know. But first of all, Keiko Takemiya is definitely a shoujo manga artist.
Well, I think that is primarily, because here they kind of say that, oh, from the master of shoujo. See, Takemiya is considered by a lot of people to be one of the founding mothers of shoujo as a genre or an idea.
Yeah, she's pretty much invented like B shonen and shonen ai type stuff in the 70s.
Well, she was a part of this group of people called the Fabulous 49ers, who I don't know much about, but according to Publishers Weekly, they were a group of women artists and writers who, quote, established and solidified the girls' comics industry in Japan in the mid and late 70s.
Yeah, apparently the other most significant person in that group was her former roommate. So it's one of those tight-knit groups of people that, busts out.
Yeah, well, I had heard the term Fabulous 49ers before. Now I know what that is.
Yeah, I think I heard of Anime World Order.
Now, there's
likely.
also a claim that Takemiya gave rise or was the founder of the idea of the genre of Bishonen manga because she wrote something called Kaze Toki no Uta, Song of Wind and Trees.
I think I've heard of that before. Anyway, all that is true. But if you read 2 Terra Volume 1 without anyone telling you anything, the only answer that I think you can come up with is that 2 Terra, at least Volume 1, is a shonen sci-fi manga. It's not shoujo. It's not B shonen. It's not shonen ai. It's like a Tezuka sci-fi. It's like Phoenix. It's the same exact genre as Phoenix Volume 2 or Phoenix Volume 6.
Well, granted, I can see how people might want to call it shoujo or have shoujo leanings because it does focus a lot on characters' personal thoughts and emotions and interactions and possible love triangles and all that sort of thing. A lot more than what you might expect from a typical OMG people in space blowing things up.
Yep, and while there isn't any B Shonen Shonenai action in Volume 1, there is I can definitely see the series going there in Volume 2 or 3.
Well, Ann Ishii, Vertical's director of marketing and publicity, says straight out that the homosexuality comes in later volumes. And there are only 3 volumes, so it's got to be coming pretty quick.
As long as it's not yaoi.
No, it is
this
definitely
manga
not.
is good enough that I can tolerate some Shonenai action if the story around it is good enough. It's sort of like how in Ghost in the Shell, you tolerate the 3 pages of, random lesbians and big boobs because the story is still good enough
Well,
that
the
it
thing
doesn't
is,
matter.
those specific pages in that Ghost in the Shell, while obviously no one can argue that they weren't just gratuitous, horrible pornography.
Yep.
At the same time, the point that was being made there was actually fairly interesting. It just probably could have been made in a less, Shiro-tastic way.
Perhaps it could have.
I mean, I can think of a couple ways I could make that point, perhaps with stick figures, that would convey the same meaning.
I could convey the same meaning without any pictures at all. I could just use some words in many different languages.
But anyway, Terra is a fairly complex story, and it is written in the 70s, so the art looks... If you didn't know anything about this artist, and you picked this up, and you read any of Tezuka's works, you might just think, wow, this looks a lot like Phoenix, or a lot like Tezuka. Did Tezuka write this?
I looked at it, and I said, wow, this looks a lot like Tezuka, except there are 2 key differences. Number one obvious difference between the art in this and the art in Tezuka's works is that the characters' faces and head shapes are a lot more shoujo-y than Tezuka-y.
Yeah, they have larger eyes, larger pupils.
Yep.
They're a lot more expressive and a lot more realistic with small noses.
Yep, their bodies and like their poses and the clothing and all that sort of stuff is a lot like Tezuka. But the faces are definitely, they have a little bit of Tezuka in them, but they're mostly modern shoujo type faces.
Yeah, though all the normal faces very often will cut away to almost Tezuka-style humor or little weird sketchy drawings or that sort of thing.
Yeah, depending on the level of zooming, and if it's a little panel on the side, it might be more like Tezuka. But if it's a big panel, where someone's standing up and it's all close in on one character, you'll get the full drawn-out shoujo face. Secondly, when she draws spaceships or mechanics or things, she puts a lot more detail and draws it a lot more in a modern style than Tezuka. Like, Tezuka would draw like a cartoony spaceship, like, a little pointy rocket bit with some holes in it, like a little circular window. She draws a highly detailed rocket ship that looks a lot more like it would be fit into Akira or something like that than anything Tezuka would ever draw.
Though, I remember if you read Phoenix, you see that he uses a lot of very interesting composition, some of which works very well and some of which is just confusing. And there's a lot of that in Terra too, but it's a lot more subdued and generally makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, it doesn't seem too highly experimental with like layouts or anything like that, but it doesn't just stick to normal, boring layouts. There's definitely some exciting stuff. She just doesn't go crazy with it.
Yep, there's a lot of profile zoomed in shot on the side while people talk next to it, or various, almost a montage of different things while speech is happening. Now, the story of Terra is both simple and complex at the same time, and actually it reminds me of a great many other works, some of which came before and some of which came after this.
Yeah, I mean, you can't help but when you read this, unless you're so uncultured and unwell-read, you can't help but feeling like you've read this story before, like you've heard it before in a million other places, even if you can't quite put your finger on it. And I wonder, this was made in the early 70s. Now, was this the first time this story was told and we missed it until now because language barrier? Or is this just another telling of the story that we've heard 1,000 times?
Well, consider that it does remind me a lot, just of one thing in particular, of Brave New World.
It's a little bit of Brave New World going on there. Only in Brave New World, the children were sort of engineered before conception, I guess, in test tubes.
Yeah.
And in this one, they seem to engineer the children after they get out.
See, the story is that the Earth that we live on, they call it Terra, over time eventually becomes overpopulated, depleted, and generally untenable. It's on the verge of collapse, and humans can't live there anymore. So with our vast technology, we spread out into space. And humans decide that the only way to save their planet, and they also, I guess they assumedly decide that saving the planet is the highest priority above all else, for whatever reason, that they must strictly control the way the planet is used and not let everyone come back to the planet in order to perfectly use all the resources and ingenuity that humans have available to make the Earth the paradise home it once was.
And to do this, of course, obviously, you put a computer in charge because people suck.
Yes, I believe they call it superior dominion. It's a system where children are born. This isn't really a spoiler so much because this is generally brought about early on, but we're not going to go into very much detail because there are a lot of things you really don't want ruined for you in this.
Oh, there's a lot of things you don't want ruined.
But basically, children are raised in space by the computer and by the system, and then brainwashed along with technology to have the chance of actually going to Earth, and then on Earth putting all of their effort toward making Earth a better place or a habitable place.
Yeah, it basically, like, they raise you in a certain way, and then they fuck you, and then they raise you in a certain way, and then they fuck you, and then eventually, if you stick within the system and, do what the system wants you to do to the best, awesomeness, and you're the super elite kind of guy, you'll end up on Earth, and you'll get to go to Terra, where all humans want to go.
Now, this is one nominally like a lot of stories we've read before. There was one volume of Phoenix that was very specifically about all of the migrants and emigres from Earth long ago always want to return to Earth, and Earth doesn't let them come back because it's too small and can't hold them all.
It's also similar to Phoenix Volume 2, Future, where computers run the world because humans fucked it up.
Now, that is the nominal background of what's going on, but the actual plot has more to do with the fact that a byproduct of this system is that certain people, bit by bit, have started to manifest various things that you could almost call psychic powers. In fact, it's straight up ESP.
Yep, it's sort of this part of the plot with the separate people who are cast out, for having psychic powers feels a lot like X-Men or like the Matrix maybe, where certain people get out of the Matrix because they're different.
Now, these people who have the ESP, they're called the Mu, are killed or cast out as soon as they are discovered.
Well, it's MU, so it might be Mu.
It's probably Mu.
Yeah, it's tough to tell.
Anyway, they're cast out or killed. They don't want people to even know that this sort of thing exists. So the society adapts by coming up with ways to detect these people and dispatch of them early on so they can't cause any trouble.
And of course, there are a group of them that were unsuccessfly dispatched that are up to some sort of business.
Yes.
That I won't spoil.
Yes, you do learn this right away that two of the early main characters who are obviously both Mu and living among these exiled people are Soldier Blue, the, quote, visionary first leader of the Mu, and Physis, the, quote, blind fortune teller.
Soldier Blue is the best character in the whole manga.
I don't know. I really like Keith Onion.
He's all right if you haven't had any Soldier Blue.
See, the story starts with Jomi Marcus Shin, who lives in a normal life, is a normal kid, kind of bright, in this whole system. And one thing leads to another, and there are implications that he may or may not be a Mu, and his parents worry about this, and his friends yell at him, and I really don't want to go any further without ruining what happens, because the plot moves at a rather quick clip, to put it lightly.
Yeah, even though the plot moves really quickly, I think it sort of has to move pretty quickly early on, because the first at least half of this volume, they're just sort of setting up the universe and the characters still. I mean, they introduce, like, really important characters around the halfway point. And it's like, whoa, and it doesn't really feel like the actual main story starts until, like, the last third or quarter of this volume.
Well, this volume has 3 parts. Part 1 follows Jomi Marcus Shin, the nominal main character, through everything that happens to him, his interactions with Soldier Blue and Physis, and it's good. Part 2 kind of starts the story over in that it gives the history and everything just like the first part did.
Well, you got it. I think the reason that's there is because it was originally published serially in some anthology.
Yes.
So you had to retell that bit.
But also, it doesn't even talk about Jomi or any of these people, and it focuses on Keith Onion and all the people around him. These are people who are a part of this system, very much the system that you didn't know much about, but was hinted at in the first part. and you see this whole thing again from an entirely different perspective.
Yeah, it's sort of like, here's something going on in this part of the universe, in this period of time, and here's something going on in a different part of the universe around the same period of time. And then, of course, as in everything that does this, the two things collide. OMG.
Yes. Now, I very much enjoyed the second part a lot more than the first part, partly because now it's a much more clinical look at how the society actually works. And kind of the veil is pulled off from your eyes, and now you see everything. At least everything as far as the main character can see it.
Yeah, see, I did like the second bit more than the first bit, but I felt like there was this potential of greater liking for the plot that was going on in the first bit. It just stopped advancing when it was going to get to where I wanted it to be.
Well,
and I'm sure in maybe volume 2 it's going to get there, and that's the part I'm really going to like.
The second bit, which really lets you see kind of the inside of how the society works, reminds me so much that it's almost painful of the Paranoia role-playing game. I would say that the society that has been created here, without ruining much, is almost exactly in the spirit of Paranoia.
It doesn't have the same silliness that Paranoia
Paranoia doesn't have the silliness depending on how you play. There are different ways to game that thing.
That's true. And while the system is not as complex as the system in Paranoia, it is definitely reminiscent.
I think it is as complex. They talk a lot about not fraternizing with people in different levels, and there's the elites, and then there's the elite elites, and there's the members, and society is stratified, and it's exactly like... Paranoia, the game, breaks up into 3 levels of, I guess, cerebralness when you play, and this reads exactly like a game of the highest, most serious level of Paranoia would be.
Perhaps. It's definitely very similar, and I wonder if the guy who wrote Paranoia ever read this.
As opposed to the first part, which in a few ways almost reminds me of Battlestar Galactica.
I don't know about that. I definitely feel like it's more of an X-Men kind of thing.
What's the plot of Battlestar Galactica?
You're in space. Some people are evil. You have to teleport every so many minutes before you get blown up.
Never mind. That's not the relevant bit.
No, but you see how it goes with X-Men, is that X-Men, they're mutants who are cast out of society. And, X-Men, most of the times when people tell the story of the X-Men, they concentrate on one character, like Kitty Pryde or something. They show someone who's a normal person, and they're, living with their parents, and then all of a sudden they find out they're a mutant and their parents cast them out, and then they run away, and then they find refuge with the X-Men.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing that X-Men is also very much like this. But look, there's 2 things going on. On one hand, this first bit with Jomi is very much the X-Men thing of people who are different are cast out because they're different and normal people are afraid of them.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's this whole idea that I think is going to be a lot more important later, the journey home, trying to find your origin, trying to get a group of displaced people through the desert for 40 days and find home or paradise whatever.
While this first part...
That is the true plot of Battlestar Galactica.
While this first part of the first volume is a lot like X-Men, I definitely feel like it drops the X-Men as soon as that first part is over, and it goes into, the rest of the story, which is completely different.
Now, Ann Ishii, that woman who is the PR person for this, says that Terra was largely influenced by, quote, Japan's student movements of the 1960s, when college campuses became hotbeds of political unrest.
Huh. I wonder what sort of political thing, ties this has, because I don't know enough details about Japanese politics to find any correlations between this and that.
And also, apparently, the writer was very much a fan of Osamu Tezuka, and she was influenced greatly by him.
That was painfully obvious just by looking at it.
Yes.
It's actually really cool to look at this manga because I like Tezuka manga, and I like modern manga. And you don't really ever get to see how manga got, it's that modern manga that you read today, like Death Note or One Piece or Naruto, is influenced by Osamu Tezuka. All manga and anime is influenced by Osamu Tezuka. The same way that all, animation in the US is influenced by Disney. Because Tezuka was influenced by Disney, so, come on. But we see the modern manga, and we see the Tezuka manga just because he's Tezuka, we get to see his stuff. But you don't really get to see how it goes in between. It's sort of like if someone told you that, there were monkeys and there were people, and they never showed you any of the in-between monkeys, which we have seen, and evolution is real. But with manga, I knew there was an evolution of manga, but I never got to see the missing links. And this is one of those missing links. It's sort of half shoujo-y style art and half Tezuka art. And it has a lot of elements of Tezuka storytelling and elements of modern manga storytelling, and it's together.
Yep.
And it's really cool because manga from this era that I assume must be similar is not published in English often. This might be the first time.
And even if you haven't read a lot of manga, don't worry about picking up something like this, because while it's old, it reads a lot like modern manga, and you won't have trouble following it for the most part, other than there's a few times where it's hard to tell who's speaking, but that's more just a function of how the art is done and how the speech bubbles are drawn.
Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, this could be not, because it's a great work on its own, but it might be a very useful work. Of all the people who like modern manga, and they refuse to read anything that looks old or might be old, you could give them this, and they could enjoy it, because of the way it is a modern manga, but you could use it as a bridge to pull them over to the other side and get them to read the older good stuff, that if they looked at now, they would be unwilling to read.
Now, I believe it's worth mentioning that there was a movie adaptation of this made in, I believe, 1980.
Uh-huh.
I don't know anything about it, and I don't even know who the director is. Hideo Onchi. There's nothing on the Anime News Network Encyclopedia. I didn't feel like doing any further research.
I highly doubt this movie is available in English anywhere. So.
It looks like it was released in the U.S. on VHS in the 90s.
Really? That's a VHS I gotta get.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'll be looking at for that at the anime cons and the dollar bins.
More importantly, Toward the Terra, a TV show, is debuting very soon.
Yeah, as in
Japan.
in a few months, you're going to see...
A few months? No, according to this, April 7th.
So on April 7th, I guess the week after that, because depending on how fast they fan sub it, you're probably going to see 2 Terra Episode 1 on the BitTorrents with subtitles in English. That's pretty freaking awesome. A brand new anime series with modern animation, and it's going to be way cool. We should link to the Japanese website for that.
Well, there's a picture here on the Anime News Network about it, and the character designs, it's hard to say without seeing them move. I'm not sure. It looks like they're going to take a somewhat interesting take on translating these character designs into animation. I do think they're pretty, though. They remind me a tiny bit of Juosei. A tiny bit, but not... They definitely have the old leaning still there.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough of them, but I think they remind me a little bit from what I remember of, all the Of the Starses. Like the crests of the stars and the banners of the stars.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
How much of those have you seen?
Barely any.
Because I saw about half of Crest of
but
the Stars.
But I've seen barely of that, and I've seen barely of screenshots from this. So that's what I'm going on.
Now, what else can we say?
It's an awesome manga. You should buy it. You can get this manga on Amazon for less than $12. And it's like twice the size of a regular manga.
Yes, it is quite hefty. And there are only going to be 3 volumes. So you're not, even if you don't like it, it's not like you're committed to something huge.
Yeah, I mean, if you buy it and you don't like it, you don't have to buy 2 and 3. No one's making you. And if you do like it, you can get the ending of this thing in 2 more volumes. You can have a whole manga series without having to buy 100 volumes of something. Even like Death Note is like 12 or 13 volumes. This is just 3. And on Amazon, they're $11.16. So if you like it, you have no excuse not to buy the whole thing and read the whole thing. The next volume, the current volume, the first volume, came out in February. The next volume will be out in April, and the final volume will be out in June. So if you're the kind of person who doesn't like to wait, in June, just go out and buy all 3 at once. And you probably won't have a problem if you buy them on Amazon. If you try to find them in the store, you might have a little bit of trouble. But I've actually seen these around. So it might not be as hard as you think to find them.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.